was a very unstable time.
You learn to hate people you don't even know just based on what they look like.
The pain was there. The hatred was there.
He was getting a lesson that he deserved to learn. How dare he intrude our world?
During the early 1960s in Baltimore, Maryland, smoldering racial tensions surfaced at a local amusement park.
My friends and I used to hang out at Gwynn Oak Park. One day in the park, I remember walking through and we spotted a black man. We hailed the police officer because there was just no way that we were going to have one of those people in our park.
Gwynn Oak happened to be a hot spot at the time. We felt as though we needed to have access to it.
Tired of putting up with unjust discrimination, the African American community began protesting.
It was a Saturday afternoon that we were involved in this particular demonstration.
Slightly down the street were white anti-integration groups who were, I would say, at least equally passionate.
The pain is cutting because you want to give your children and yourself the same opportunities as everyone else has.
It was all very threatening and very confusing.
Though the outward racial tensions at Gwynn Oak Park eventually subsided, the internal tensions continued for both Earl and Ed.
Had a plan, a life plan that seemed to be working out fine. Outside of our plan, 2 weeks before the birth of our child, we found out that our child was going to be profoundly deformed. I had an angry at God reaction.
I had a high-profile job, and the income was good, so I lived the life of a good person. But I had animosity, I had hatred that I stored. I was consuming quite a bit of alcohol.
Faced with problems they couldn't solve on their own, Earl and Ed both needed more than a temporary solution.
I thought if there was a heaven, I'd go because I was such a nice fella. But the more I thought about, the more I was stricken with the reality that I was a fraud and a liar and a phony. And I realized that the only hope I had was in Jesus Christ.
My wife had asked me, would I be interested in attending a new church? End of service, the invitation was given. I got up and stepped across her, and she looked at me and says, "Where you going?" I said, "I'm going forward." Once you have dedicated and made a commitment to Christ, the change begins.
When I think about what Christ has done in my life, he's done the impossible.
Both men finally discovered lasting change in Jesus Christ, as God's power completely transformed their lives and relationships.
And we began to have a Bible study on a Thursday night.
One of the men, a man named Ed Green, began sharing a story about being at Gwynn Oak Park in 1960 and how it had affected his feelings and attitude towards whites. As Ed shared his story, I sat there realizing that there was no way I could be honest with my own faith without sharing the reality of the fact that I was there at that same time, but there to join in making him feel hated and rejected and not wanted.
Without Christ in your life, there's always animosity, there's always hatred.
Ed came over, threw his arms around me, and began to hug me and tell me that he loved me. And we realized how changed we were.
Hi, brother. How you doing? Good to
Always
see you,
good, always good.
I loved a man who I met, who I would have hated. God did that to me.
Christ teaches you how to love and to feel free to come into a white brother's home and be accepted just as a brother in Christ is a tremendous feeling.
What can Christ do? He can make all the difference. He does make all the difference. He is all the difference.